Hey friends, welcome to the Raising Boys and Girls podcast. I'm Sissy Goff.
And I'm David Thomas.
And I'm Melissa Trevathan.
And we're so glad you've joined us for this conversation. Let's dive in. For more than 20 years now, Andrew Peterson has been about the business of quietly changing lives in 4-minute increments. Peterson has forged his own path, creating a long line of songs that ache with sorrow, joy, and integrity, and that are, at the end of the day, part of a real, ongoing human conversation. In 2019, Andrew celebrated the 20th anniversary of his Behold the Lamb of God project with an anniversary tour and a brand new album recording. He is also the award-winning author of the Wingfeather Saga, a fantasy adventure series for young people. The books are also part of an animated series through Angel Studios. Andrew also released 2 nonfiction books, The God of the Garden and his memoir, Adorning the Dark. In 2008, driven by a desire to cultivate a strong Christian arts community, Andrew founded a ministry called The Rabbit Room, which led to a yearly conference, countless concerts and symposiums, and Rabbit Room Press, which has published over 30 books to date. Andrew and his wife, Jamie, have been married for over 24 years and have 3 children, Aiden, Asher, and Sky. In his spare time, Andrew keeps bees, builds dry stack stone walls, gardens, draws, and sleeps. Enjoy this conversation with Andrew Peterson.
So, Andrew, I have known you from a lot of different places in life and long admired your work and been to so many shows and been to Behold the Lamb, which I just love. We're going to talk about that. But I think one of my favorite moments interacting with you was when we did that event together.
Yeah.
The Q event.
I remember that was the day I became a huge Sissy Goff fan.
You're so kind. Well, I already was an Andrew Peterson fan, but I loved hearing you talk about growing up that day. I just thought it was fascinating and it felt like such a picture of how, we talk so often, and I'm sure you do too, about how nothing's wasted. And that so many of your growing up moments and where you were and what you were thinking about what God was stirring in you was crafting you into who you are today. And,
sure.
And we're both big Rich Mullins fans. And I remember when part of your talk, you said, there's more that rises on the prairie than the wind, and more that I don't remember which
more
part
that
you
rises
said.
in the morning than the sun, more that dances. I know we're both forgetting the lyric. It's a really great lyric, y'all.
Yes.
But yeah, from If I Stand.
Yes, and that's one of my favorite of his songs, and I was like, But I would love for you to talk about you don't have to talk about that piece of it, but when you kind of saw stirrings growing up of who you are and what God has designed. Obviously you're living in your gifting in this beautiful way that blesses the world. And so when did you see that start to emerge and how?
Yeah, I think, that story about hearing the Rich Mullins song is it's the sharpest focus of that kind of moment that I can remember. But there were lots of little moments like that, lots of moments of,
at what ages?
I remember in high school, especially, I was a class clown, not a very good student, but I loved to read. I was mainly interested in doing stuff that was unassigned. You know what I mean? As soon as I was supposed to be doing it, I didn't really want to do it. Piano was the same way. I remember taking piano lessons and I never practiced. And then quit piano lessons and played constantly. And so so it was this weird, those are flaws in me. But I remember when I was 16, I was experiencing something in music, in movies, in stories that I was reading. Like I was hungry for something, and those things seemed to like whet my appetite. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I don't know that they were necessarily feeding me anything, but they were making me hungry. And so I remember just being intrigued by whatever was going on inside me that was waking up when I was watching a certain kind of movie or reading a certain kind of book. And there were times when something beautiful got my attention and I was convinced that there was, most of my life I was convinced there had to be something out there, There's a song, and I'm always embarrassed to quote my own lyrics, but
Please.
There's a song called The Power of a Great Affection, and in it said, even in the days when I was young, there seemed to be a song beyond the silence. And that was kind of the way that I experienced it. There seemed to be something out there on the other side of all this that was calling to me or stirring me in some way. And then when I heard that Rich Mullins song, as kind of like someone who is waking up to the beauty of the gospel, I remember thinking, oh, that's what it is.
Yes.
It was kind of like I was swimming in the waters of this, cultural Christianity in the deep South, and was almost too close to the painting to understand what it was. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, all this stuff I've been learning about as a kid is the thing.
Yes.
That is the song.
Yes.
And so, yeah, that's kind of how it happened.
It's a beautiful way to put it.
It is. Okay, and in building on that, you are in so many creative spaces, songwriting, writing, developing the Rabbit Room. Will you talk more about just how you found your way to each of those spaces?
Oh, man. Well, the songwriting was kind of the horse that I rode out of town as a young man, fresh out of high school, didn't know what to do with my life, and then joined a really lame rock band. And but it kind of gave, it was the first time I ever got paid to do music, was this really lame rock band. And
what was his name?
I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you. But I ended up kind of getting out of my little town. And then eventually finding myself, became a Christian about a year later, really, and asked God if I could sing about him. So music was the thing that I really felt this deep love for. And so, the thing about Rich Mullins, it wasn't just that he was great at music, it was that he kind of was the first one through the brush. Like, he kind of made a way.
Yes.
And I think, talking to the Gullahorns, like Jill and Andy and Andrew Senga and like all these friends of ours, we could kind of point to what he was doing as part of what gave us a way to think about what we might want to do one day.
Wow.
And so that was what got me to Nashville. Jamie and I got married in college and then moved here. But I always wished that I could know what it was like to write a book. And then I don't know, after the third record was when the first book came out, and my kids were old enough then to read to them. And I was like, ooh, I got to know what it's like. And I think that's the thing with music and most of the other stuff that I'm talking about, is that it was always interesting. Like, music got to my heart in some interesting way. And then, it wasn't enough for me to just listen to songs. I was like, okay, I want to know how to play that song. So I would sit in my room and learn these Tom Petty songs or whatever on the guitar. And then once I learned the song, eventually that wasn't enough. I was like, okay, wait a minute. Somebody wrote this song. How do you write a song? How do you get inside it? So to me, I always think about like lifting the hood of the car and kind of like messing with the wires and trying to understand what makes this thing work. And so books were the same way. I would read a book and go, somebody wrote this. How did they write this? How does this work? And so trying to understand that and get into the inside of a story was what led me into writing the Wingfeather Saga. And then this kind of the same thing with the TV show. It's like, how do people make a TV show? Like, this so interesting to me. But all of this stuff, it's like they're the same. Paint. I'm trying to learn to paint now. I've been drawing for years, but I'm trying to understand painting. And again, it's like when I see a painting, I go, how do you do this? I don't know what it is. So I may never be that great at a lot of it, but I'm intrigued by the process and understanding it. Like I can't sit still the day after I've written a song or painted a painting that I don't hate, because I want to keep looking at it. And there's this weird feeling where I'm like, I know what a knucklehead I am. And somehow God let me be the person through which this thing came into the world and is now a part of history and will always have been. This thing will always have been, and I got to be the one that to birth it, sort of. And so that isn't about the
thought about that.
Yeah, like the quality of it is irrelevant in that. It's like the fact that it is this generosity on God's part that he allows us to be a part of this, participate in the, some little part of history and the shaping of the world. We get to be a part of it. It's amazing.
Wow. Well, I feel like we could go down 30 rabbit holes to hear about each different, you've done so many different, just the things you threw out. Okay, but I want to park on Behold the Lamb for just a minute.
Yeah.
And I think we would both say really strongly, find, I don't even know when this is coming out, but if it's this year, if it's next year, if it's in 10 years, find a show. And they can get on your website, which is
Andrew-Peterson.com.
and find a show. I don't care how far you have to drive. It's transformational.
Yes, it is. I'm
And
going this year and
you
bringing friends from
are-
North Carolina. You're
Oh,
jealous,
I need
aren't you?
tickets. I am. Yes.
Yay.
Well, and I love, Andrew, it feels so much like who we both know you to be, that the second part is this beautiful poem of the gospel. And the first part, of course, you are showcasing all these people that you love. It's like you're wanting everybody else's talent to be on display and sharing that, and which I'm grateful yours gets woven in too. But will you talk a little bit about it? I'd love to know how it came to be. I don't even know that. And
Oh, man.
and what you hope folks gain from it.
Yeah. Well, we talked about my friend Gabe a few minutes ago.
Yes.
Gabe was a part of the beginning of it. Way back. So this year will be our 24th annual, which is just crazy to
That
me.
is
I can't believe that,
crazy.
like, nobody would have ever believed, even 10 years ago, that we would still be doing this. And every year I'm like, what is going to be the thing that makes us not do this anymore? Like, is somebody going to are we just going to get old and like tired? I don't know what it is. But the idea came, so I went to Bible college after high school, like that in that season after the Rich Mullins kind of encounter with Jesus through his music. I was like, okay, I need to get out of this band. I want to understand more about this stuff. So I found myself, it wasn't as noble as it sounds. I honestly it was really inexpensive. It was this little Bible college. And the guy that I was rooming with at the time was heading there. And I was like, well, I might as well just follow him So I found myself and just loved it. Wasn't a super great student again, but I loved being there. I loved having somebody smarter than me, or paying somebody smarter than me to make me read my Bible. And so the thing that I remember being really intrigued by when I was in college was these Old Testament survey classes where the professor was really good about saying, this whole thing is about Jesus. Like he's the sun at the center of this universe, right? Or the center of this solar system. And so reframing my misunderstanding of what the Bible really was, kind of in the way that Sally Lloyd-Jones talks
That's
about the
exactly
Jesus
what I was
Storybook Bible.
thinking. Yes.
When I read that, I was like, there it is. That's the thing.
Is that when you started bringing her?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
that's so cool.
It was fun because she was like, I almost felt like we were, like I was like, did she steal this line from me? and the answer is no. Like we were just both kind of like learning the same things about the Bible kind of at the same time. So anyway, that was the idea. It was like, what if we did a concert that told that story? Because like if I'm a pastor's kid and I grew up in the church and I had completely missed the centrality of Jesus to the whole story, just because whatever. There must be other people who either have forgotten or never realized. And like, what if we were to write a Christmas concert that reframed the Bible story in that way? And so, but I also knew that like it was a show that was more than I could do on my own. I knew I couldn't pull it off with just a guy and a guitar, which meant that I kind of turned and saw this amazing community of songwriters around me and was like, hey, you guys want to do this together? And that's what we do.
And we are thankful you do.
Yes, we are.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah,
I love
so
it.
grateful.
Yeah.
Okay, we talked a little bit about the Wingfeather Saga, which we are as committed to raising a generation of readers as you are. And I can't tell you
Wow.
how many kids and families we've recommended those
Yes.
books
Oh,
to.
that's
And
awesome.
so,
Thank
Yes.
you.
so
Thank you.
thankful for them. And you have a new book in that series. And then the series, as you mentioned, has been made into a TV series.
Yeah.
So cool.
Which we're so excited about.
Where's that? Where can they watch that?
Angel.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Will you talk about this new book in particular
Sure.
and the series in general and kind of what you hope kids take away from reading and watching?
Yeah. Oh man. So the new book is called A Ranger's Guide to Glipwood Forest. So the main series is 4 books long, but then there have been several, companion books that have come out around it, which has been really fun. So the first one was Pembroke's Creaturepedia, which is kind of this bestiary of weird creatures that are in this world. And the first edition came out when Aiden, my oldest son, was 16. He illustrated it at 16.
Wow.
And then once they re-released the books in 2020, he was like, "Hey, can I?" Now that he was then 20 years old and professional illustrator, he was like, "Can I have another whack at this? I've grown a little bit since I was 16." And so he re-illustrated that. So then when it came to the Ranger's Guide, of course, I was like, "Please, Aiden, do you have time in your schedule to do this?" And he did. I'm so thankful. But just amazing, wonderful illustrations. I was telling somebody yesterday, if I wasn't related to Aiden, I would be stalking him on Instagram. I would be such a fan of what he's doing.
Love that.
Such a good artist. And his wife is also an amazing illustrator and artist. So anyway, Ranger's Guide was a fun excuse to go exploring in Glipwood Forest, which is the scary forest and near where the kids live at the beginning of the story, and full of weird creatures and super dangerous. But in the lore of the world, they in book 1 of the Wingfeather Saga, it talks about how back before the Great War, the forest was tamed by rangers, like so that people could actually travel in the forest. And during the events of the main part of the story, that's a thing of the past, and the animals have taken over again, and so nobody can really safely walk through Glipwood Forest. So I was like, I'm going to go back in time like 500 years or 1,000 years and tell the story of the original Rangers Guild that tamed the forest the first time. So I'm getting to go back and like explore the forest in the events before the events of the Wingfeather Saga, which again is like so fun to do because there's no real pressure to tell some big epic thing. I'm going exploring
Playing.
in this. Yeah, playing. That's the word for it. Which is, it's almost like I can't believe I get paid to do this. It's amazing. And then to send it over to Aiden and let my son do the same thing. He texted me yesterday and said, "I can't believe I get to illustrate fantasy books with my dad." And I was just like,
True.
it's a huge gift. It's amazing. So, yeah, it was funny because somebody was like, "Hey, what spiritual things do you want people to get out of the Ranger's Guide to Glipwood Forest?" And I kind of laughed. I was like, "I don't know." Like, it's just a really fun story, I hope, and a chance to explore. And that said, there's so much room in the life of a Christian to just read a fun book about exploring a scary forest.
Yes.
Which reminded me, I was thinking about this before I came here. When I was, backstage before concerts, a lot of times we always gather and pray and ask the Lord to help us do good work and, fill in the blank. Like everybody has their way of praying before a show. And there were several years ago where I realized I started praying, "Lord, let me be funny tonight." And I know that sounds kind of weird, but like I just wanted to. It not only is it entertaining and enjoyable when you can be funny and you can connect with an audience in that way. That's one of the ways that like our hearts get softened,
Yes.
and readied for other good
true.
things that might sneak in. Like it's a way of letting down people's defenses, and so in the same way, I'm like, oh, just let this book be fun. Let a kid climb up in their bunk bed and just lose themselves for a few hours in something in a fun story. So
Yes, that's so cool.
Sissy, how was your Thanksgiving?
It was great. We went to the lake. How was yours?
It was fantastic. We went to the beach. There was only one hard part.
What was that?
Before my college kids went back to school, they raided our pantry and took all my liquid IV.
Well, who could blame them? Liquid IV is amazing, and you do keep a good stash of flavors on hand.
Not anymore. My supply is gone. I'm placing a new order as we speak.
You know they sell it at Costco.
You're kidding me.
They do. I just got some for Aaron for his stocking. No matter where or how you're hydrating this season, Liquid IV is the hydration brand fueling your well-being. And their hydration multiplier can keep you going through the end of the year and beyond.
With 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, plus 8 vitamins and nutrients for everyday wellness, Liquid IV hydrates 2 times faster than water alone, all in a single stick.
Now it's available in sugar-free. Choose from 3 delicious flavors: white peach, green grape, and lemon lime.
I love the lemon lime. It's zesty and refreshing.
I love the convenient packaging. I drop them in my purse and then pour them in my water bottle wherever I am.
I love that it contains 8 vitamins and nutrients for everyday wellness.
Well, I love that there are no artificial sweeteners and 0 sugar.
Grab your Liquid IV Hydration Multiplier sugar-free in bulk nationwide at Costco, or you can get 20% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use code RBG at checkout.
That's 20% off anything you order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code RBG at liquidiv.com.
Sissy, I am hearing from a lot of parents that they are struggling to balance their busy to-do list right now.
'Tis the season, and it's only going to get worse the closer we get to the holidays. It's times like this I'm so thankful for Every Plate.
Every Plate is really the best time-saving tip I give to parents. With Every Plate, you make fewer trips to the grocery store and you have meals ready in 6 simple steps.
Every Plate gives you one less thing to worry about in crazy busy seasons.
Not to mention their fall menu looks delicious. We had the country fried pork chops the other night, a true comfort meal. It was delicious.
Oh, that sounds comforting. I made the tortelloni chicken sausage bolognese, comforting and quick. It's a 15-minute meal. Talk about saving time.
Oh, that sounds so yummy.
It was. Every Plate is 50% cheaper than your average fast casual meal, and it's more affordable than other meal delivery kits, so it saves time and money.
The only thing better than conquering the busy schedule is conquering the budget. Win-win.
Get started with Every Plate for just $1.49 per meal by going to everyplate.com/podcast and entering code 49RBG.
Go to everyplate.com/podcast and enter code 49RBG.
Well, I've said this on the podcast before, and I will say it a million times because it's one of my favorite things I've ever done in my life, is I went to Canada and took a writing class from Madeline L'Engle and Lucy Shaw together.
Whoa.
Is that the coolest?
Whoa.
I know. And neither of us have ever written a novel, but one of the things Madeline L'Engle said, I mean, there's so many things I'll never forget. She said, I wish I'd videoed the whole thing, but she said that she loved to write fiction because she said so often a character will just present itself in the story and I won't have planned for that character, never have met the character, and there the character is. And then I get to learn from the character and interact with the character. Does it feel like that?
Yeah, yeah.
So
I was
cool.
I'd heard that before from people.
Really?
And I was like, really? Is this really going to happen? Does the story really want to go places that because you feel like you're in control of this thing. I'm the author.
Yes.
But then, yeah, the best moments in the story are the moments where the author is surprised.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it happens. It totally
That's
happens.
so cool.
And I love that you got to spend time with them. I learned so much from those two.
Oh,
Wonderful, wonderful writers.
yes. Yes.
That made it sound like I'm friends with them. I know Lucy a little bit, but I just mean from reading Walking on Water and Lucy's poems especially.
Yes. They're
Just
beautiful.
Great stuff.
Okay, so we're going to switch gears and talk a little bit about your family.
Yeah.
Some of your other amazing co-creations with God and Jamie. We need to give her credit too.
Yes.
So will you talk, we heard a little bit about one, but they really are all so creative and gifted in so many ways. Will you talk about what they're doing, their ages?
Oh man, I love to talk about this.
And where people can find them too.
Yeah, sure. So Aiden, it's funny, Instagram is like such an amazing resource for visual artists.
Oh, wow.
Aiden Peterson, Aedan Peterson, and then his wife. And now I'm blanking on, because she has kind of a funny Instagram handle, but you can find her through Aiden's. That's probably a great place to find what he's working on, his visual art. And I think AidenPeterson.com. I bought all the domain names for the kids when they were little.
Did you really?
Isn't
That's so cool.
It's such a weird Nashville-y thing to do, just in case, And it turned out to be a really good idea, to have snagged that stuff. But yeah, so Aiden's art is wonderful. I will say this too. They all do music in one way or another, and they have a band called Wake Low, 2 words, Wake Low, which they put out a record during COVID. It was like their COVID thing. They kickstarted it and made this, truly one of my favorite albums. Like I just couldn't believe, I was like, who are you people? Where did this come from? So Anyway, so Aiden is the visual artist who has no interest in being on stage, but writes songs and can sing. So anyway, then Asher is the my second son, and he's the one who was like, please don't make me go to college, because he was a drummer and wanted to play music, and of course we were like, no, go do what the Lord is calling you to do. And so he immediately was on the road, either playing drums with people or road managing, running front of house. And he's a very kind, responsible person, which means that he will never not have work. And so he's just really good at what he does. And so he's got a studio here in town, and he's a producer. When he's not on the road, he's making records for people. So Asher, one of my favorite things about Asher is when he was 16, so Ben Shive is, you guys know Ben a little bit. He's one of the best songwriters and producers here in Nashville, and worked with me for many years, still does in some ways. And when Asher was 16, he reached out to Ben without telling me and said, can I apprentice? Can I learn how to make records under you? And then Ben mentioned to me, it was like, oh yeah, Asher's going to start whatever. I was like, excuse me, you're doing what? But he had the idea and reached out to Ben and apprenticed under him as a producer for many years and got good at it until Ben was then sending him work. So by the time he graduated high school, he was like off to the races. Isn't that amazing?
That's amazing.
So much
Incredible.
Initiative. And so anyway, so he's just great. And then, and he's married, and his wife also sings a little bit. And then my daughter Sky just got married about a couple weeks ago. I don't know when this comes out, but she got married in 2023, and to a wonderful man who is also a singer-songwriter. So we have this, I mean, it's the Nashvilleest family ever, like visual artists and poets and whatever. And I just love it. I attribute it. People have said, what did you and Jamie do to encourage creativity or whatever in your kids? And I honestly, we did some things, but the real thing I think is that they grew up in a community of people who took their art seriously as work, but they also grew up in a community of Christians who took art seriously and did work. So like they grew up in this really rich community of people who aren't, it's like you can hear their song on the radio, but then you see them take communion on Sunday. And so our kids didn't grow up with this weird segregation in their brains about what it meant to be a Christian and pursuing art. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Which I think a lot of us grew up in a world where that wasn't a normal part of the conversation.
Yes.
And so I think it's just been cool to see that the kids grew up in this garden called the church, where and in a community where it was like seen as a valid expression of what it means to follow Jesus and be a Christian. You can write poetry, you can make films, you can produce records, and that's all. There's a seat at the table in the kingdom for people who love to do those things. But also a community where they didn't grow up with this illusion that it was all fun all the time.
Yes.
They also knew that it was going to be work. And so our kids, aren't surprised to find that, being a songwriter is sometimes really difficult. And sometimes the road beats you up, or sometimes just writing a song is really, really difficult. And so I think that they've grown up in an environment where they're not surprised by the fact that art is work.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Okay, and along those lines, I realized we didn't talk enough about the rabbit rooms. So thinking
I
about
was thinking about that too.
creating space for these offerings to grow, like, will you just talk more about that idea and what you hope comes from that space?
Man, well, the rabbit room has been so interesting. It's grown so much so quickly over the last few years. There have been some growing pains. It's not been the easiest journey in the world, but also it just felt very much like the Lord has been in it and in one way or another. So I founded it, I guess, 16 years ago as this kind of an expression of what you were talking about earlier, Sissy, the Behold the Lamb, this idea that art seems to thrive in community. And the way we usually put it is that art nourishes community and community nourishes art, that there's a symbiosis there. And so so that was kind of the beginning of the idea. And my brother started kind of like heading up Rabbit Room Press. So we've been putting out books that we believed in, trying to support artists that we, the thing is, when people say that Christian music is bad, I just want to say, well, you're just listening to the wrong Christian music. Like the church has been putting out really great music for centuries. And so same thing with Christian books or Christian poems. Like Christians have no reason to hang their head and like as if secular art is all great.
Right.
It's just not. So much of it is so bad. So our thing is like, well, the Lord speaks through whatever he wants to speak through. So we want to draw attention to good work. And then, look under the hood and figure out like, hey, what's going on there? And then realizing that works great in the context of a community and place. And so, the Rabbit Room, a few years ago, the community kind of helped us build this gathering place in Nashville called Northwind Manor.
I keep wanting to come to something there.
Oh, you should come.
Yes.
Me too.
It's wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah. And we do a lecture series and occasion like concert series, the local show. And there are open hours a couple days a week where anybody can come and kind of sit around and eat a scone and do whatever. Like I had described it for years as an experiment in community. And experiments sometimes don't always go the way that you think they're going to go. And so interestingly, like we've kind of landed on this, the mission statement is that the Rabbit Room cultivates and curates stories, art, and music to nourish Christ-centered communities for the life of the world. For the life of the world, I'll say that because the idea is we used to think of it as the old mission statement said that we fostered community through whatever, which made it sound like we were parenting community, which we can't be in charge of everybody's community. Like that's impossible. But we do believe that making good stuff and drawing attention to good art is one way to nourish community. And that community kind of springs up like zinnia seeds at the end, in the summer. You plant one flower and then a bunch more just kind of show up, volunteer. And so I think that's kind of where we landed was we want to try to help draw attention to the good stuff. We also want to help people who are making good stuff to continue to do that because we believe that is good for community and that's good for the world.
Sissy, I'm panicked. It's already December and I barely started Christmas shopping.
Well, I'm happy to report I'm ahead of the game, thanks to some of the amazing sponsors of our podcast. I have been shopping online and using the amazing codes they're giving us.
That is brilliant.
I'm super excited that KiwiCo, one of our sponsors, is helping make Christmas for my nephews magical. I just wrapped the color wheel racers and ramp, sort and stack puzzle blocks, and sensory solar system set.
Say that 3 times as fast as you can. I'll go first. Sissy bought the sensory solar system set.
I can't say it, but I can say that KiwiCo is full of brain-building play for the littlest learners.
There is no age limit, so you could shop for me there as well.
Well, thanks, David. I'll keep that in mind. With 9 different subscription options for different ages and subjects, there's something for every kid.
KiwiCo delivers seriously fun, hands-on projects that inspire a lifelong love for learning.
Tested and approved by kids. No crate leaves without approval from their toughest critics, kids. I built a Play-Doh pasta maker with Henry, and we had so much fun.
The day the KiwiCo box arrives will be your kid's favorite day of the month.
There's something for kids of all ages, from infants and preschoolers to teens and beyond, as David has reminded us. Spark creative confidence through screen-free fun.
There's no commitment, so you can pause or cancel anytime.
Discover hands-on fun with KiwiCo.
Get your first month free on any crate line at kiwico.com/RBG.
That's your first month free at kiwico.com/RBG. Okay, so family-wise, we are talking about the ages and stages this season of our podcast, and we would love to know, this is a huge question, but has there been a favorite season with your kids?
Oh, man.
Or just one that stands out to you right now for some reason that you loved and why?
Well, I'll say every season had its challenges, but also each next season was, I think, my favorite one.
Yeah.
Like I remember the teenage years were wonderful for us, and it wasn't. That isn't. Again, I don't want to make it sound like perfect. It wasn't perfect at all. But I just really loved being able to have like real deep conversations with the kids and hanging out with them and watching them become people. And so things that I think we were a little bit nervous about going into it, like, oh, what's it going to be like this next season? We didn't experience it that way. And I attribute most of that to my wife. Jamie is
It's remarkable.
she is really amazing, and she's really good at hanging out. I get antsy. I kind of want to know what the next thing is. We need to be doing something. And she will sit on the couch and just shoot the breeze for hours. And the kids love it. Like, and I'm kind of like, okay, when are we going to do the thing? When are we going to watch a movie later or whatever? And Jamie's like, hold on. I haven't asked them about this part of their lives, And so, and she's really great too about like, one-on-one dates with the kids. She'll call, they all live in Nashville. And so she'll call them up and say, hey, you want to meet for coffee? Isn't that amazing? Like, it seems like a small thing, but it's kind of a big thing for, to stop what you're doing in the middle of the week and go have coffee with your kids.
Yes.
I'm not super good at that part of parenting. I love being around them, but I'm just busy, just doing stuff. And so we try to see them once a week somewhere. But she will do this one-on-one thing, which is amazing. All that to say, when Sky got married, Jamie and I were, I love weddings anyway, from like, there aren't very many sacramental things in our culture, that even, pagans sort of celebrate, right? But weddings tell a story, a Christian story. And so to know what's happening on a metaphorical level when two people get married, when Sky and Tom got married, and to believe that and to see it played out and to think the Lord gave us this gift, this picture to tell us a story about his love is just, it's amazing. I was just a total mess. But the thing that I because Sky's our only daughter, it was the first time that we were the hosts of the feast, right? And so at a wedding, there's a sense in which Tom gets to represent the bridegroom, Christ, right? Sky gets to represent the church in this moment. And it hadn't occurred to me, but Jamie and I got to kind of represent God the Father, who's hosting the feast and sitting back and dipping way into our savings, into the coffers to make this feast memorable and beautiful, and to provide this memory for the family, and the extravagance of it all. And I just was a total mess. And I was like, I think this day is the culmination of our entire lives up to this moment. In that, all of our children were there, all of our extended families were there. Like, there's this spiritual gravity to what's happening that is also brimming with joy. And so we just were standing back watching it all happen and thinking, like, I don't know what comes next. I don't even know. So that's genuinely, you asked about favorite stages of parenting. It was literally that day where my beautiful daughter got married to a wonderful man, and where my boys and their wives were there, all of our family was there, and we got to enact. We got a rehearsal of the wedding feast of the Lamb, right? And that's an amazing gift,
beautiful.
And it wouldn't happen without these kids,
Wow. Okay, and we forgot to talk about Sky's music.
Oh yeah, Sky. Oh my goodness.
She's killing it.
She is killing it.
She's doing so great.
She is wonderful. And I just watched a video. She has a song called February Prayer that she wrote, which, Sky is such a picture of her wonderful heart and the longing that she has about this, like, feeling worn down at the end of a long winter and longing for the day that you would see the daffodils come out of the ground and the spring coming. And it is a great song. And I was listening to it thinking that if I didn't know who she was, I would be a massive fan of this song. So what a gift she's blown my mind. So the Gettys have been really generous, and She's been writing with Ben and involved in a lot of Getty stuff. Great songs that she's writing for them, but then also her
So
singer-songwriter
fun to
stuff.
follow
Yeah.
along her. Yeah,
And
with
Asher
her,
is
yeah.
producing a lot of her record, produced her big record.
Wow.
Anyway, we're
So
just
cool.
pinching ourselves. It's really, really great.
Glad you got those domain names for sure.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yes.
I was thinking too, as you were talking about, these different moments with your kids, and even when you're telling the story of your wife extending that invitation to go to coffee, that is so beautiful. And what else is beautiful is that they want the invitation. That you've nurtured these kind of relationships where you have a friendship with your kids as adults, which I think is every parent's hope, that when they're no longer living in our homes, they still want to be with us. And to hear you talk about all these different moments of time together as family, I love that you all are getting to see the fruit of that. And thinking about being a father of adult children, what would you say to parents of younger kids? Anything?
Ooh, wow. Well, I would say go easy on yourself. You're going to get it wrong. Like I've told the story before, but it's a good answer to that question. It's Brown Bannister is a Lipscomb professor here in town. Great old kind of legendary record producer guy.
Ellie Holcomb's dad.
Ellie Holcomb's dad, yes.
For those of you that might not know.
And the day that we dropped Aiden off for college at Lipscomb, I was crying because I'm an Enneagram 4. I was I was just feeling all of this like regret because my oldest was stepping into college. I mean, he's only living 20 minutes down the road, but I still felt like it was like the end of an era.
Yeah.
And I was like, Netflix, why would I have watched even one show on Netflix when I could have been drawing with my son upstairs? Like all the regret, all the, like every show that I had that I missed, like a play that he was in, or I was just replaying all of the dad stuff in my head. And I told Brown that story and he laughed and he was like, oh man, it's been so great to see the way the Lord has redeemed all my mistakes over the years. And up to that moment, I had, my wife had been saying, oh, Andrew, you're a good dad. And Aiden was like, Pops, you're a good dad. Like what? But none of that helped. The thing that helped was Brown saying, well, no, you're not a great dad. The point is that the Lord redeems all of that stuff. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's what I would have said. Like, it doesn't mean you stop trying, obviously, to do it well. But at the same time, I think, in that moment, I had so much of my attention was on kind of beating myself up for having missed it. And I think that like turning your attention away from all the things that you missed and putting that attention on the fact that you are almost like, how do I put it? Like God gets to be the hero of the story, not you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so that's what Brown kind of conveyed was like, no, he's the father that is going to get it right. And so entrust your kids to him and then it takes the pressure off a little bit, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so yeah, that's what I would say to young Andrew is like, hey, you're going to get this wrong. But also the closer you are to God the Father and the more you are allowing yourself to be shaped by him, the better of a dad you're going to be.
Wow.
Thank you.
Well, we have told people a million places they can find you, but is there anything we've missed or what would you add? Andrew-Peterson.com.
Yep.
Instagram.
Yeah, just Andrew Peterson Music, maybe, or Andrew Peterson. I don't remember what it is on Instagram, but it's easy to find.
You'll find it. Yeah.
But yeah, that's
Rabbit
the
Room.
thing. Yep, and the TV show,
the books.
which we're deep in season 2 right now, which comes out just after the first of the year, and season 3 is in production.
Okay.
So we're just like cranking that thing out. 7 seasons. So like the next 10 years of my life will be
Wow, that's so cool.
taken up by that, which is so fun. It's just so cool.
And we're so grateful for that because the ability we tell families to watch shows together a lot just as a way to enjoy each other. And there are so few shows.
That was our goal. Yeah, that's our thing is to try to make a show that
for that.
everybody
Yes.
will want to watch together. Yeah.
Yes. Well, the one thing I have to say is hearing you talk, speaking of shows, the place I've heard you the most frequently and the most recently is singing Tractor, Tractor. Slugs
Oh,
and bugs.
no.
And when you started
That's so
talking, I
funny.
was thinking, why do I feel like I hear his voice all the time? And then I realized it's you saying, hey, wait, let me.
Hey,
let me
Randy, I got some ideas for a song here. And so when I meet kids who know that record, they're kind of like, you can see them hiding behind their mom and dad's legs, looking, they're like, kids, this is the guy, the Tractor guy. And they don't really know who I am yet. And then I go, hey, Randy, I just had some ideas. And they go, that's the guy. That's the dude.
I know. My little nephews had a bunkin party with me last night. That's what we call them, bunkin parties. And I didn't even tell them. I can't believe they would have just.
That's so
I would have been the
lost their
coolest aunt on the
minds. Yes.
planet if they knew I was coming
Serious.
to be with you.
That's
for
so funny.
Tractor,
Amazing.
Tractor. Yep.
I love that.
So thank you for all the gifts
Oh,
that you're
man.
putting out into the world.
Yes, we can't thank you enough for that.
Andrew.
Thank you.
Man.
And for spending this time with us and just rich conversation. And when we were talking about families coming together to watch a show, another place is around the table. So we end every episode, kind of take a detour toward food, but it's still connected to parenting.
Yeah.
And so we've got a funny 2-part question for you.
Okay.
Part 1 is queso or guac, and part 2 is what's your favorite kind of taco?
Ooh, man. Queso or guac? When we go to Ladybird Taco, plug for Ladybird Taco.
Yes.
We always get both queso and guac, and I kind of mix the two. But if I had to choose one, in my 30s, I would have said queso. Now that I'm in my 40s, I say guac. How's that for an answer?
Right.
And my favorite taco, ooh, man. We eat at Ladybird every week, every Sunday. That's our family tradition, is Sunday after church.
Cool.
Because we all end up kind of going to different places, and we come together, and if whoever's in town, we have Ladybird together. And which that's a parenting tip. If you pay for the meal, the kids will show up.
Yes,
That's
they
a great
will.
point.
They usually do. So, and I get a different taco all the time, but I would probably say the 11 at the 9 is the chicken
That's
taco
my
at Ladybird.
favorite,
Yeah.
yes.
And then I'll add bacon if I'm feeling really, really scandalous.
Ooh, that sounds great. Oh, Andrew, thank you. I could listen to you talk for hours.
Oh, man.
I'm
Me
sad
too.
this is over already.
You think that? Yeah, you would run out of steam quick. But I will
listen
just
to you
take this
sing.
opportunity to say thank you guys for what you do. You've been a tremendous blessing to our family and so many families around Nashville and beyond. I will be forever grateful
Thank
for your
you.
friendship, your kindness, and the good work that you're doing.
Thank you. It
Yeah.
means a time. If you are enjoying the Raising Boys and Girls podcast, click follow on your podcast listening app to subscribe and not miss an episode.
Join us next time for another episode where we'll bring you help and hope on your journey of raising boys and girls.